Before we begin, a quick warning. This presentation contains elements that are psychologically intense and may be disturbing to some listeners. Please proceed with caution. How can a person be in two places at once? I don't mean on a video call or in a photograph. I mean physically. How can your wife be standing right in front of you, smiling in the warm light of your kitchen, while you can simultaneously hear her walking around in the attic directly above your head? It's a question that violates the basic laws of physics, a question that your brain refuses to even process. But for me, it's not a riddle. It was the beginning of the end of my life as I knew it. It all started 3 months after my wife, Jessica, and I bought the house. It was our dream home, a 2-story colonial on a quiet tree-lined street in suburban Ohio. Built in the 1940s, it had what the realtor called character. That meant creaky floors, drafty windows, and a faint, persistent smell of old wood and dust. We loved it. It was ours. We spent our weekends painting walls, sanding floors, and slowly turning the old, forgotten house into a home. The one place we hadn't touched or even opened was the attic. The access panel was in the hallway upstairs, a small, painted-over square in the ceiling with a frayed-looking cord hanging from it. The home inspector had poked his head up there and said it was just dusty storage space, structurally sound but filled with old insulation. We figured we'd get to it eventually. There was no rush. The attic could wait. Turns out the attic had its own timeline. The first time I heard it, I almost missed it. Jessica and I were in the kitchen making dinner. She was chopping vegetables at the island, and I was stirring a pot on the stove. And then I heard it. A soft, rhythmic thudding from the ceiling. Hut hut hut. Like footsteps. Slow, deliberate footsteps. I paused, spoon hovering over the pot. Did you hear that? Jessica didn't look up from the cutting board. The rhythmic chop of her knife was the only sound for a moment. Hear what, honey? That sound. Footsteps. Upstairs. She finally looked at me, a slight smile on her face. Michael, it's a 70-year-old house. It groans, it creaks, it settles. It's probably just the pipes. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But the sound wasn't a groan. It wasn't the metallic clang of a pipe. It was the unmistakable soft-shoed sound of someone walking. And it was coming from the attic right above the master bedroom. I tried to dismiss it, telling myself it was a squirrel or a raccoon that had found its way in. We lived in Ohio, it happened. But the sound was too heavy for a raccoon. Too steady. Over the next few days it continued, but only when I was around. It was never a loud, obvious noise. It was always subtle, just on the edge of hearing. A faint scratching sound, like fingernails dragging lightly across a wooden floor. A soft thump, as if something had been set down carefully. I'd ask Jessica if she heard it, and every time she'd give me that same patient, slightly concerned look. She heard nothing. She started suggesting I was stressed from work, not sleeping enough. To be fair, I wasn't. The sounds were making sure of that. The turning point came on a Thursday night. We were getting ready for bed. Jessica was in the bathroom, and I was lying in bed reading, the house silent except for the hum of the refrigerator downstairs. Then I heard it again. This time it was different. It wasn't scratching or thudding. It was humming, a quiet, melodic hum, coming directly from the ceiling above me. My blood ran cold. I knew that tune. It was an old lullaby, one Jessica's grandmother used to sing to her. She hummed it absent-mindedly when she was happy or focused on something. I heard her hum it 1,000 times while gardening, while painting, while cooking. And now someone or something was humming it in our attic. I sat bolt upright in bed, my heart hammering against my ribs. The bathroom door opened and Jessica walked out, toweling her hair dry. She was humming the exact same tune. My mouth went dry. The humming from the attic stopped the instant the humming from my wife began. It was like a perfect, terrifying echo. "Jess," I whispered, my voice hoarse. "Were you just upstairs?" She frowned, lowering the towel. "What?" "No, I was in the bathroom. Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." I couldn't answer. I just stared at the ceiling, then back at her. Her face was filled with genuine confusion and concern. She was my Jessica. She was right here. So who or what had I just heard? I was starting to feel like I was losing my mind. Was I imagining it all? Was the stress of the new mortgage and the fixer-upper house finally getting to me? That night I barely slept. I lay awake, listening, straining my ears for any sound from above. But there was only silence. A heavy, watchful silence that felt even more unnerving than the noises. The next day, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know. While Jessica was out running errands, I went to the garage and got the stepladder. I placed it directly under the attic panel in the upstairs hallway. My hands were trembling slightly as I reached up and grabbed the dusty cord. The square panel was sealed shut with layers of old paint. I had to pull hard, putting my weight into it. With a loud crack, the paint seal broke and the panel swung down. A set of rickety, folded wooden stairs descended with a groan, showering me in dust and flakes of white paint. A wave of musty, stale air washed over me, the kind of air that hasn't moved in decades. It smelled like decay and forgotten things. I stood at the bottom of the ladder, staring up into the pitch-black maw of the attic. It was an absolute suffocating darkness. No light from the hallway seemed to penetrate it. I grabbed the flashlight I'd brought with me and took a deep breath. My heart was pounding. This was stupid. It's just an attic. I was going to go up there, find a dead raccoon, and feel like an idiot. That was the best-case scenario. That's what I prayed for. I put my foot on the first rung of the wooden ladder, creaked ominously. I slowly made my way up, the flashlight beam cutting a shaky circle into the darkness. I could see ancient, exposed beams and thick blankets of gray, cottony insulation. Nothing else. Just an empty, silent space. I was almost at the top, my head and shoulders inside the attic itself, when I heard the front door open downstairs. "Michael? I'm home. Where are you?" It was Jessica. Relief washed over me so intensely my knees felt weak. I wasn't alone. "Up here," I called down, my voice echoing in the confined space. "I'm checking the attic." I heard her footsteps on the stairs. A moment later, she was standing at the bottom of the attic ladder, looking up at me with a worried expression. "Be careful, honey. It looks ancient up there." "It's fine," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "There's nothing up here. It's just empty." I swept the flashlight beam across the space one last time, from one dark corner to the other. Dust motes danced in the light. It was just a creepy old attic. I felt a surge of embarrassment. Jessica was right. I had been stressed, imagining things. I started to back down the ladder, feeling foolish. As my feet hit the hallway floor, Jessica put a comforting hand on my arm. "See? Nothing to worry about." I smiled, a genuine, relieved smile. "Yeah, you were right. I guess I just let the old house get to me." As I said it, I reached up to push the folding stairs back into the ceiling. My hand was on the wooden frame when we both heard it. A whisper. It came from the darkness above. A faint, dry, rustling sound, like dead leaves skittering across pavement. It was so quiet I wasn't sure I'd heard it at all. But then I saw the look on Jessica's face. Her eyes were wide, fixed on the black opening above me. She had heard it too. The whisper came again, a little louder this time, clearer. It was a woman's voice. And it was a voice I knew as well as my own. It was the voice of my wife. And it whispered my name. "Michael." My blood ran cold. Every hair on my body stood on end. A forest of tiny needles prickling my skin. Jessica's grip on my arm tightened, her nails digging into my bicep. She was trembling, a shudder passing through her that I felt in my own bones. Buster, our golden retriever, let out a low, guttural whimper from the foot of the bed. His tail tucked so far between his legs it practically disappeared. He was staring at the ceiling, at the square outline of the attic hatch, his body pressed flat against the floorboards. The silence that followed the whisper was somehow louder, more terrifying, than the sound itself. It was a heavy, suffocating blanket of quiet, filled with a question that my mind refused to form. How was that possible? I turned my head slowly, my neck stiff, to look at my wife. Her face, illuminated by the soft glow of the bedside lamp, was a mask of pure, unadulterated fear. Her eyes were wide, her lips parted as if to speak, but no sound came out. Her freckles, usually a charming constellation across her nose, stood out like flecks of ash on pale stone. "Jess," I whispered, my own voice a dry rasp. She shook her head, a tiny, frantic motion. That wasn't me, Michael," she breathed, her voice barely audible. "I swear." But it was. I knew my wife's voice better than I knew the sound of my own heartbeat. I knew its every inflection, its every nuance. The way it went up half an octave when she was excited, the way it softened when she was tired. The whisper from the attic had been her. It was her voice, laced with a strange, hollow echo, as if spoken down a long, empty tunnel. But it was hers. "Michael." It came again. This time there was a pleading quality to it, a sorrow that twisted something deep in my gut. Buster whined again, a high-pitched, painful sound, and scrambled backwards, his claws scratching against the hardwood floor as he tried to get further away from the ceiling. "Who is that?" Jessica cried, her voice finally breaking, tears welling in her eyes. She clutched my arm tighter, burying her face in my shoulder. "What's happening?" I didn't have an answer. My mind was a frantic scramble of rejected possibilities. A recording? Who would put a speaker in our attic playing a recording of my wife's voice? A prank? This felt far too elaborate, far too cruel for a prank. My thoughts were a chaotic storm, but through the noise, one primal instinct screamed louder than the rest. Protect. Defend. I gently untangled myself from Jessica's grasp. "Stay here," I said, my voice firmer now, fueled by a surge of adrenaline. "Lock the door behind me." "No. Michael, don't," she pleaded, grabbing for my hand. "Don't go up there. Please. Let's call the police." "And tell them what?" I shot back, trying to keep my own fear from showing. "That we heard a whisper? That we think there's a ghost in our attic who sounds like you? They'll think we're crazy." She didn't have a reply for that. She just stared at me, her eyes begging me to stay. I walked over to the closet and pulled out the heavy metal maglite I kept on the top shelf. Its weight felt solid and reassuring in my hand. I clicked it on, and a powerful beam of white light cut through the dimness of the bedroom. I took a deep breath, the air feeling thin and sharp in my lungs, and walked out into the hallway. The pull cord for the attic stairs dangled from the ceiling, a piece of knotted twine swaying ever so slightly in a draft I couldn't feel. It looked like a hangman's noose in the shadows. For a moment I hesitated. Every horror movie I'd ever seen, every ghost story I'd ever heard, was screaming at me to turn around, to grab my wife and my dog and run out of the house. But this was my house, our home. I wasn't going to be scared out of it by a voice. I reached up, my hand shaking slightly, and gave the cord a firm tug. The attic door groaned in protest, a long drawn-out creak of old wood and rusty springs. A set of rickety wooden stairs unfolded from the ceiling, crashing down onto the hallway floor with a bang that made me jump. A puff of dust and insulation, smelling of decades of disuse and dry decay, billowed out from the dark opening. The air that drifted down from the attic was cold, unnaturally cold, the kind of damp chill that seeps right into your bones. I placed my foot on the first step, creaked ominously under my weight. I aimed the flashlight beam up into the oppressive blackness. The light caught on swirling dust motes, making them look like a galaxy of tiny dead stars. I could see the rough-hewn wooden beams of the roof, draped in thick cobwebs that looked like funeral shrouds. Piles of forgotten things were stacked against the far walls. Old furniture covered in white sheets, cardboard boxes sagging with the weight of unknown contents, a rocking horse from Jessica's childhood that she could never bear to part with. It was exactly as we had left it when we'd stored the Christmas decorations away last January. Nothing seemed out of place. Nothing looked disturbed. I took another step, then another, the wooden ladder groaning with each movement. The silence from above was absolute now. Even the house itself seemed to be holding its breath. When I reached the top, I paused, listening. The only sound was my own ragged breathing and the frantic thumping of my heart against my ribs. I hoisted myself up into the attic, my feet landing on the dusty floorboards. The beam of my flashlight cut a nervous path through the gloom, sweeping over stacks of old magazines, a rusty birdcage, a trunk that had belonged to my grandfather. Everything was coated in a thick, uniform layer of dust. Everything except for one small patch of floor in the far corner. My light froze on it. It was a small circular area, maybe 2 feet in diameter, where the floorboards were clean. The dust had been wiped away, not recently, but not a lifetime ago either. It was a space that had been cleared, as if someone or something had been sitting there, kneeling there. My heart hammered in my chest as I took a cautious step closer. What was I looking for? I had no idea. A footprint? A sign of entry? My light scanned the cleared circle, and that's when I saw it. Something glinted in the center of the clean patch of wood, a tiny flicker of reflected light. I knelt down, the old wood creaking under my knees. My hand trembled as I reached out and picked it up. It was cool to the touch. It was a small silver locket, heart-shaped, with intricate floral engravings on its surface. And I knew it instantly. My breath caught in my throat. I had given this locket to Jessica on our very first wedding anniversary. I'd had it engraved on the back. With trembling fingers, I turned it over. The beam of the flashlight illuminated the tiny looping script. Asterisk my Jessica. My always, asterisk. It was the one. The same one she had lost 5 years ago on a trip to the lake. She had been devastated. We'd searched for hours, combing the shoreline until it was too dark to see, but it was gone forever. She'd cried for 2 days. Yet here it was, in my hand, in the one spot in our attic that showed any sign of recent activity. How could it possibly be here? 100 questions exploded in my mind, each one more terrifying than the last. But one rose above the others, cold and sharp and sickening. Who or what had brought it here? I scrambled backwards, my mind reeling. I had to get out. I had to show Jessica. I practically fell down the attic stairs, my feet hitting the hallway floor with a thud. I didn't bother folding the ladder up. I just ran back into the bedroom, the silver locket clutched so tightly in my fist that the edges dug into my palm. Jessica was sitting on the edge of the bed, exactly where I'd left her, her arms wrapped around herself. She looked up as I burst in, her face pale and tear-streaked. "Michael, what was it? Did you find anything?" I didn't say a word. I just walked over to her and opened my hand. The silver locket lay there on my palm, gleaming under the lamplight. Her eyes widened. The color drained completely from her face, leaving her ghostly white. A sound escaped her lips, a choked, horrified gasp. It wasn't the gasp of someone seeing a long-lost, beloved piece of jewelry. It was the sound of someone seeing a ghost. "Where?" she whispered, her voice trembling so hard she could barely form the word. "Where did you find that?" I held her gaze, my own eyes searching hers for an answer, for any explanation that made sense. "In the attic," I said, my voice low and steady, belying the storm raging inside me. "Now you tell me, Jessica. How did it get there?" Jessica's smile, the one I had fallen in love with a decade ago, faltered. It didn't vanish, but it tightened at the edges, transforming from a look of warm amusement into something brittle, like a mask about to crack. She took a half-step back, her hand falling away from the locket as if it had suddenly grown hot. "The attic? Michael, what were you even doing up there? You know how much you hate the dust." Her voice was light, attempting to deflect, but I could hear the faint tremor beneath the surface. It was the same tone she used when one of the kids tried to change the subject after breaking a dish. "Don't do that," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "Don't change the subject. Look at this." I held the locket out, the tiny silver heart dangling from its chain in the space between us. The picture inside. See you. The inscription on the back. It says, "My Jessica, forever." So I'll ask you again. How did it get into a sealed box, under years of dust, in our attic? She let out a frustrated sigh, running a hand through her hair. "Oh, for heaven's sake. That old thing." She wouldn't meet my eyes, focusing instead on a spot on the wall just over my shoulder. I'd completely forgotten about it. Forgotten about it? I felt a surge of disbelief. "Jess, this isn't some old sweater. Look at it. It's from my Aunt Carol," she said quickly, the words tumbling out. "You know my mom's cousin? The eccentric one from Oregon. She sent it to me for my high school graduation. I always thought it was gaudy and weird, so I don't know, packed it away. I probably threw it in that box when we were moving in here and forgot all about it." Aunt Carol. The name was vaguely familiar. A footnote in a story Jessica had told me years ago about a relative who collected garden gnomes and read tarot cards. It was plausible. Almost. "And the picture?" I pressed, opening the clasp again. The tiny face of my wife stared back at me, her smile identical to the one she wore now, yet utterly alien. "Did Aunt Carol take a picture of you from the future and put it in here?" "Michael, stop it." Her tone was sharp now, all pretense of lightness gone. It was just some weird old-fashioned photo that was already inside. A stock photo. You know, like they put in picture frames at the store. I always thought it was creepy how much it looked like me. That's another reason I hated it. Her explanation was a neat little package tied up with a bow of logic. It should have satisfied me. It should have made me feel foolish for dragging this gaudy old piece of jewelry down from the attic and making a scene. But it didn't. Every word she said felt rehearsed, like a story she had prepared for a question she never expected to be asked. "The box was sealed, Jess," I insisted, my own frustration mounting. "Not with packing tape, but with that old yellow tape that cracks when you touch it. It was under my old yearbooks and that broken lamp from college. No one has touched that stuff since we moved in 8 years ago. But this locket, it's not even tarnished. It looks brand new. Well, I don't know, she snapped, her voice rising. Maybe it's silver-plated, maybe the box was airtight. I'm not a scientist, Michael. What do you want me to say? That a ghost put it there? She threw her hands up in exasperation. Honestly, I'm more concerned about you. You've been so on edge lately. Working all those late nights, you're barely sleeping. Now you're up in the attic, getting worked up over a piece of junk costume jewelry. Maybe you just need a break. And there it was. The pivot. The subtle shift from her strange secret to my supposed instability. It was a move she had perfected over the years. A gentle, concerned redirection that left me feeling like the unreasonable one. But this time it felt different. It felt calculated. She reached out and took the locket from my hand, her fingers closing around it possessively. Look, I'm sorry you got spooked. I'll get rid of it. We can just forget this whole thing ever happened. She turned and walked toward the kitchen trash can. No, I said, the word coming out sharp and loud. She stopped, her back to me. Don't throw it away. I want to hold on to it. She turned around slowly, her eyes narrowed. The concern was gone, replaced by a cool, unreadable appraisal. Why? I didn't have an answer. Not a real one. Because it's evidence? Evidence of what? I had no idea. I'm not sure, I said, my voice dropping. I just don't. She stared at me for a long moment, the silence stretching uncomfortably. Then she sighed, a long, weary sound, and placed the locket on the kitchen counter. Fine. Do whatever you want with it. Without another word, she walked out of the room and headed upstairs. I heard our bedroom door click shut. I stood alone in the kitchen, the silence of the house pressing in on me. The locket lay on the granite countertop, gleaming under the recessed lighting. Aunt Carol. The explanation echoed in my mind, full of holes. If she'd hated it so much, why keep it? Why pack it so carefully? And the photo, it wasn't just a resemblance. It was her. Every detail, from the tiny mole above her lip to the way her left eye crinkled slightly more than her right when she smiled. It was my Jessica. My mind raced, trying to find purchase on something solid. I walked over to the bookshelf in the living room where we kept a row of old photo albums. My hands trembled slightly as I pulled one out, the one labeled College and Early Years. I flipped through the plastic-covered pages, past smiling photos of us at football games, at formal dances, on a spring break trip to Florida. And then I found it. A picture from our senior year. We were at a party, our arms around each other, grinning at the camera. And there, around Jessica's neck, was a necklace. It was a locket, but it wasn't the one from the attic. This one was gold and oval-shaped. I remembered it perfectly. I had given it to her for our 1-year anniversary. She had loved it. She wore it every single day until the clasp broke 2 years after we were married. She had said she hated lockets. She thought they were gaudy. My blood ran cold. It was a small lie. An insignificant detail, easily forgotten over the course of a decade. But it was a lie. And it was a lie about the exact thing I was holding in my hand. I closed the album, my heart hammering against my ribs. Why lie about something so small? Unless it was part of a much, much bigger lie. My gaze drifted up toward the ceiling, in the direction of the attic. The house was completely silent. But as I stood there, clutching the photo album, I could have sworn I heard it again. A faint rhythmic tapping, coming from directly above me. It was slow, deliberate. Tap, 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 like a fingernail on a wooden floorboard. And it sounded like it was right over my head, in the one part of the attic I hadn't searched. The small, cramped space right above the living room. I looked back at the locket on the counter, then back up at the ceiling. The tapping stopped, and I realized, with a sickening lurch in my stomach, that I wasn't just trying to figure out where the locket came from. I was trying to figure out who or what had left it there, and if they were still in my house. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the sudden, oppressive silence. The air in the hallway grew thick, heavy, as if the oxygen was being slowly siphoned out. Every nerve ending screamed at me to run, to grab Sarah and Lily and get out of the house, to not look back. But I was frozen, my feet rooted to the hardwood floor. My gaze locked on the trapdoor to the attic. The tapping was gone, but its ghost remained, an echo in my mind that made the quiet feel watchful. Who was up there? The question was a physical thing, a cold knot tightening in my gut. Had they been watching us? Listening to our conversations, our arguments, the mundane rhythms of our lives? The thought was a violation. A chilling intrusion that made the very walls of my home feel like they were closing in. I clutched the locket in my hand, its metallic edges digging into my palm. It was identical to Sarah's, yet it was a complete stranger. A perfect copy, a lie made of silver and gold. I had to find Sarah. The need was primal, eclipsing even my fear. I needed to see her, to touch her, to confirm that she was real and safe. I crept down the hallway, my steps unnaturally quiet, my ears straining for any sound beyond my own ragged breathing. The house, our home of 8 years, suddenly felt like a foreign country. Every shadow seemed to stretch and twist, every familiar object imbued with a new and sinister meaning. The grandfather clock in the foyer didn't just tick, it counted down. The family portraits on the wall didn't just smile, they watched. I found her in the living room, curled up on the armchair with a book, bathed in the soft, warm glow of a reading lamp. The scene was so perfectly normal, so domestic, that for a moment, I felt a wave of dizzying relief. I must have imagined it all. The tapping was just a branch against the roof, the locket a forgotten trinket. My mind was playing tricks on me. "Hey," she said, looking up. Her smile was the one I'd known for over a decade. "You were quiet. I didn't even hear you come in. Just thinking." I managed, my voice hoarse. I walked over to her, my body still thrumming with adrenaline. I knelt by her chair and held out my hand, palm up, revealing the locket. "I found this. By the attic door." She looked at it, her expression unreadable for a split second before it softened into one of mild surprise. "Oh wow," she said, taking it from me. "I can't believe you found that. I thought it was gone for good." I stared at her. "What are you talking about? You're wearing yours." I pointed to the locket that was, as always, resting against her collarbone. She laughed, a light, airy sound that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Honey, you're forgetting. My grandmother gave me 2 of these when I was a teenager. They were a matching set for me and my cousin Jessica. Remember? The one who moved to Oregon. I guess I packed this one away in a box of old keepsakes and it must have fallen out. Mystery solved." She smiled again, a perfect, reassuring smile. And the explanation was perfect, too. It was logical. It made sense. It explained everything away in a neat little package. But as I looked at her, a sliver of ice slid down my spine. Something was wrong. It was the way she said, "honey." She always called me Han. Always. It was a small thing, an insignificant detail, but it felt like a discordant note in a familiar song. And her story about her cousin Jessica. I searched my memory. I'd met Jessica once, maybe twice, years ago. I had no memory of her grandmother giving them matching lockets. But then again, could I really be expected to remember a detail like that from so long ago? Sarah's explanation was designed to make me feel foolish for even questioning it. And it was working. "Right," I said, forcing a smile. "Of course. I guess I forgot." "You look pale, Ethan," she said, her brow furrowing with concern. She reached out and placed a hand on my cheek. Her skin was cool. "Are you feeling okay?" "Yeah, fine. Just a long day." I stood up, needing to put some distance between us. The woman in the chair looked like my wife, sounded like my wife, but my gut was screaming at me that she wasn't. I felt like I was losing my mind, caught between what I knew and what I was seeing. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. Sarah was breathing softly beside me, a picture of peaceful slumber, but I couldn't relax. I kept seeing that locket in my mind, hearing her perfectly plausible, perfectly wrong explanation. I slipped out of bed and went to my office, the spare locket heavy in my pocket. Under the harsh light of my desk lamp, I examined it again. It was identical to Sarah's in every way. The same floral etching, the same delicate chain. But her explanation still gnawed at me. Driven by an impulse I didn't understand, I took a small pocket knife and carefully worked the blade into the seam of the locket. It was stiff, as if it hadn't been opened in years. With a faint click, it sprang open. My breath caught in my throat. It wasn't empty. Tucked inside one half was a tiny folded piece of paper. On the other side was a photograph. It was one of our wedding photos, the one of us laughing on the steps of the old courthouse. But it was horribly defaced. A sharp object, like a pin or the tip of a knife, had been used to violently scratch away Sarah's face. All that remained was my smiling face, next to a shredded, unrecognizable void. A cold dread, pure and absolute, washed over me. This wasn't a forgotten keepsake. This was a threat. This was a trophy. The tapping, the locket, the subtle, terrifying wrongness of the woman sleeping in my bed. It was all real. I had to know what was in the attic. The fear was still there, a living thing inside my chest, but now it was mixed with a desperate, burning need for answers. I waited, listening to the sounds of the house. I heard the shower start in our master bathroom. It was now or never. Grabbing the heaviest flashlight I owned from the kitchen drawer, I walked back to the hallway. My hand trembled as I reached up and pulled the string for the attic stairs. The mechanism groaned in the quiet house, the sound deafeningly loud. The wooden ladder unfolded with a series of loud clunks, landing softly on the floor. My heart was a jackhammer. Every instinct told me to stop, to lock the door and pretend none of this was happening. But I couldn't. I had to see. I had to know who had been living above my family, watching us. Taking a deep breath, I started to climb, the flashlight beam cutting a nervous path through the darkness above. The air that hit me was stale, cold, and smelled of dust and something else. Something faintly, cloyingly sweet. I pulled myself up onto the attic floor, my feet landing on the rough wooden planks. I was in. I swept the beam of light across the space. It was mostly what I expected: old boxes, forgotten furniture covered in white sheets like a graveyard of memories. But then the light landed on the far corner, and I saw it. It wasn't a person. It was a small makeshift living space. A dirty sleeping bag was laid out on the floor, next to a small pile of empty food wrappers and plastic water bottles. Next to the sleeping bag was a stack of my wife's old clothes. A faded blue sweater I hadn't seen in years, a pair of jeans she used to love, a silk scarf. It was a nest. Someone had been living here. And then I saw the photographs. They were scattered all over the floor around the sleeping bag. Dozens of them. Family photos taken from our albums downstairs. Pictures of me, of Lily, of us on vacation, at birthday parties, just living our lives. I bent down, my hand shaking so badly I could barely hold the flashlight steady. Picked one up. It was a picture of the three of us at the beach last summer. Lily was on my shoulders and Sarah was standing next to us, her arm around my waist, laughing at the camera. But she wasn't laughing in this photo, because her face was gone. Meticulously, precisely cut out, leaving a perfect, blank, white silhouette where my wife should have been. I looked at the other photos. It was the same in every single one. My face, Lily's face, and a gaping empty hole where Sarah was supposed to be. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the sudden, suffocating silence of the basement. I ran my thumb over the edge of the cutout, feeling the crisp, perfect line of the paper. It wasn't torn. It wasn't ripped in a fit of rage. Each and every silhouette was excised with a surgeon's precision. An act of removal. An act of erasure. I slammed the album shut, dust motes dancing in the beam of my flashlight. I grabbed another, one from our first year of marriage. Our trip to the Grand Canyon. There I was, grinning like an idiot on the edge of the south rim. And next to me, a Sarah-shaped void against the vast orange landscape. Our wedding album. I flipped it open with trembling hands. Me at the altar waiting. My best man David clapping me on the shoulder. And the space next to me, the space where my bride should have been, was a pristine white emptiness. The entire history of my marriage, of my life with the woman I loved, had been hollowed out, leaving behind nothing but a collection of absences. A wave of nausea rolled over me. This wasn't just a prank. This wasn't a cruel joke. This was a systematic dismantling of my reality. I felt my sanity fraying at the edges, the world I knew dissolving into a fog of uncertainty. Who had done this? When? The albums had been down here for years untouched. It would have taken hours, days even, to be this meticulous. My mind raced. I needed proof. I needed something tangible, something official that couldn't be cut up with a craft knife. Something that proved Sarah Jenkins, my Sarah, was real. I dropped the album and bolted from the basement, taking the stairs two at a time, my breath catching in my throat. I didn't even glance at the attic door. My focus was singular. The office. The filing cabinet. Our office was my sanctuary. A small room lined with bookshelves and smelling of old paper and leather. It was where we kept everything important. Passports, birth certificates, deeds, tax returns. I fumbled with the key to the filing cabinet, my hand shaking so violently it took 3 tries to get it into the lock. The drawer slid open with a familiar metallic groan. I thumbed past folders labeled mortgage, car titles, taxes. My heart was a jackhammer. Then I saw it. A crisp manila folder simply labeled personal. I pulled it out, my fingers feeling clumsy and foreign. Inside were our birth certificates, Lily's social security card, and tucked in a protective plastic sleeve, our marriage certificate. I held it up to the light of the desk lamp, a profound sense of relief washing over me. It was real. It was official. The embossed seal of the state of California was right there. My full name, Ethan Michael Carter, and right below it her name. I stopped. My blood ran cold. The relief I'd felt moments before curdled into pure, unadulterated horror. The name on the certificate was not Sarah Jenkins. It was a name I had never seen before in my life. Rebecca Miller. Rebecca and Miller. The signature next to the name was a delicate, looping script completely unfamiliar to me. I stared at it, my mind refusing to process what my eyes were seeing. I read it again. And again. Rebecca Miller. Who the hell was Rebecca Miller? I collapsed into my desk chair, the certificate fluttering from my fingers onto the floor. This was impossible. A clerical error? A forgery? But it looked perfect. The paper felt right. The ink was right. It was dated correctly. June 12th, 12 years ago. Our anniversary. But it said I had married a stranger. Was I losing my mind? Had I fabricated my entire life with Sarah? Was she a phantom? A figment of a broken imagination? No. I could feel her. I could remember the specific scent of her shampoo. The way she'd hum off-key when she was cooking, the feel of her hand in mine. Those memories were real. They were the bedrock of my life. Weren't they? A sound drifted down from upstairs. A soft melodic humming. It was faint, but it cut through my panic like a knife. I recognized it instantly. It was the lullaby. The one Sarah always sang to Lily. A simple, sweet tune she said her own mother had sung to her. Hearing it now, from the thing in the attic, felt like a violation. A desecration of something sacred. The humming was perfect. Every note exactly as I remembered it. It wasn't a monster's screech. It was a mother's song. And that was somehow the most terrifying thing of all. A rage I didn't know I possessed surged through me. It burned away the confusion, the fear, and left behind a core of pure white-hot anger. This thing, this creature wearing my wife's face and stealing her voice, was now trying to steal her memories too. It was trying to sing my daughter to sleep with a stolen song. I stood up, my chair scraping harshly against the hardwood floor. I was done hiding. I was done being afraid. I didn't know what it was, but I was going to face it. I was going to get my daughter, and I was going to end this. I stormed out of the office and headed for the hallway, my eyes fixed on the attic door at the far end. Each step was a drumbeat of war. My hand clenched into a fist. I was going to rip that door off its hinges if I had to. I reached the end of the hall, my shadow stretching long and distorted before me. My hand went to the doorknob, the cold brass a shock against my skin. But I paused. My eyes caught something I hadn't noticed before, taped to the center of the door at a child's height. It was one of Lily's drawings. A crayon picture on a piece of construction paper. It was our family. There was a tall stick figure with brown hair. That was me. Next to me, a small stick figure with a bright yellow dress and a huge smile. Lily. And holding my other hand was a third figure. A woman with long blonde hair just like Sarah. But her face. Lily had drawn a happy, smiling mouth. But where the eyes should have been, there were just two frantic black scribbles. Vicious circles of black crayon, pressed so hard into the paper they had almost torn through it. They were empty. They were voids. Beneath the drawing, in Lily's wobbly, first-grade handwriting, was a caption. My family. A chill deeper and more profound than any I had felt before, snaked its way up my spine. It wasn't just the soulless eyes in the drawing that terrified me. It was what Lily had written below the female figure. She had written the word mommy. But the word was furiously crossed out. A thick, angry line of red crayon slashed right through it. And just beside it, scrawled with a shaky, uncertain hand, was a new word. A single word that made the air leave my lungs and the strength drain from my legs. Again. Again. The crayon marking was crude, the work of a child, but the implication was as sharp and as cold as a shard of glass. It wasn't mommy is gone. It wasn't this isn't mommy. It was again. As if this was a cycle. As if Lily had seen this happen before. My heart hammered against my ribs. A frantic bird trapped in a cage of bone. Had this thing been here before? Had it tried and failed? Or had it succeeded, and this was just the latest in a line of replacements? My mind reeled, trying to connect dots that shouldn't exist. Sarah's accident, the diary, her strange behavior, and now this single terrifying word from my 6-year-old daughter. I carefully placed the drawing back between the pages, my fingers trembling so badly I could barely close the book. I pushed the diary back into its hiding spot, deep behind the dusty box of old college textbooks. Every instinct screamed at me to grab Lily, run out of the house and never look back. But where would we go? What would I tell people? That my wife isn't my wife? That a monster is sleeping in my bed? They think I was crazy. They take Lily away from me. No, I was trapped. We were trapped. The only way out was through. I had to play the part. I had to be the loving husband, the doting father, all while a cold, calculating stranger wore my wife's face. I crept down the attic ladder, my feet silent on the rungs. The house was quiet, too quiet. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator, the faint ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. Sounds that once meant comfort now felt like a countdown. I walked into the living room. She was there, sitting on the sofa, bathed in the pale blue light of the television. She wasn't watching it. Her head was tilted slightly, her eyes fixed on the screen, but they were distant, unfocused. She was perfectly still, like a mannequin posed in a furniture display. "Hey," I said, my voice catching in my throat. I cleared it, forcing a casual tone. "Everything okay?" Her head swiveled towards me, the movement unnaturally smooth. Her lips curved into that familiar, yet utterly alien smile. "Just thinking," she said. Her voice was a perfect imitation of Sarah's, but it lacked all warmth. It was like a synthesized voice reading a script. "About what?" I asked, sitting in the armchair across from her, creating a deliberate distance. "About efficiency," she said, turning her gaze back to the blank TV screen. "This house has so many redundancies. Wasted space. Wasted energy. I've been mapping out a new organizational system for the kitchen pantry, based on item frequency of use and expiration date. It could increase our meal prep efficiency by at least 15%. I stared at her. The real Sarah was wonderfully, chaotically messy. Her pantry system was whatever fits, wherever it lands. She called it organized chaos. This creature, this thing, spoke of our life together like it was a business in need of optimization. This was my chance. I had to know for sure. I had to test it. I took a breath, letting a soft, nostalgic smile play on my lips, a mask for the terror churning in my gut. "You know what I was just thinking about?" I began, keeping my voice light. "That little movie theater in Vermont. The one we went to on our first real getaway weekend. Remember that?" She turned to face me fully now. Her eyes, those cold, observant eyes, narrowed slightly. "I do," she said, her tone flat. "A computer accessing a file. Remember the smell?" I pressed on, leaning forward. The popcorn machine must have been 100 years old. It made the whole lobby smell like burnt butter and sugar. And that old man who took the tickets, with the one bushy eyebrow that looked like a caterpillar, was sleeping on his forehead. I chuckled, a dry, hollow sound. The real Sarah would have laughed instantly. She loved that story. She called him Mr. Caterpillar. The thing in front of me didn't laugh. It just watched me, its head tilted. The theater was called the Majestic. The film we saw was a romantic comedy starring Kate Hudson. The year was 2011. The facts were correct. She had the data, but the soul of the memory was gone. It was like reading a Wikipedia entry about a day that had changed my life. "But the smell, Sarah," I insisted, my voice getting tight. "And Mr. Caterpillar, don't you remember how we laughed? You snorted soda out of your nose." Her smile flickered, a brief digital error. For a split second, her face was a blank canvas of confusion. Then the mask was back in place. "Yes," she said slowly, as if tasting the word. "It was amusing." Amusing. That was the word she chose for one of the most joy-filled, spontaneous moments of our early relationship. And in that moment I knew. I knew with a certainty that was colder and heavier than any dread I had ever felt. This was not my wife. The woman I loved was gone. And this imposter was sifting through her memories like a thief picking through a jewelry box, taking the stones but leaving the sentiment behind. A chilling thought surfaced. If it could access her memories, what else could it access? Her thoughts? Her fears? Did it know that I knew? Her eyes stayed locked on mine, and a subtle shift occurred in her expression. The polite, vacant smile faded, replaced by something else. something calculating. The test was over, and I had a sickening feeling that we had both failed. She stood up. "I'm going to check on Lily," she said. Her voice once again a perfect imitation of my wife's, but I could hear the new edge in it. It was a statement not of maternal care but of ownership. I watched her glide up the stairs, her movements silent and economical. I stayed frozen in the chair, my mind a whirlwind of panic. The pretense was over. She knew I was suspicious. The game had changed, and I had just revealed my hand. I was no longer an observer. I was a threat. My gaze drifted around the living room, this space we had built together, and everything suddenly looked foreign. The throw pillows on the couch, the books on the shelf, the photos on the mantel. My eyes landed on our wedding photo. It was the largest one in a silver frame Sarah had picked out, the two of us beaming on the happiest day of our lives. I walked over to it, my legs feeling like lead. I needed to see her face, the real her. I needed to remember. I picked up the heavy frame. There we were. Me in my slightly too tight tuxedo, and Sarah, my Sarah, in her beautiful white dress, her eyes sparkling with a joy so pure it felt like it could light up the world. I smiled a genuine, painful smile, and then I froze. Something was wrong. I brought the photo closer to my face, my breath catching in my chest. It was her dress, her hair, her smile. But her eyes, they weren't the eyes I remembered. They weren't the eyes that sparkled with life and laughter. Staring back at me from the photograph from that day over 10 years ago were the same eyes that had just looked at me from the couch. Cold, watchful, and utterly, terrifyingly empty. It was impossible. This photo had been on our mantel for a decade, but there it was. Proof that this lie, this invasion hadn't started with a car accident. It had started long, long before I ever could have imagined. My fingers trembled, the glossy surface of the photograph feeling impossibly cold against my skin. 10 years. For 10 years, that empty space on the ski lift had been occupied in my memory by a smiling woman I called my wife. A woman who, according to this digital file, had never been there at all. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the sudden, suffocating silence of the study. Who was the woman sleeping in my bed? Who was the woman I had married? My mind raced, tumbling back through a decade of memories, now all tainted, all suspect. Anniversaries, birthdays, lazy Sunday mornings. Were any of them real? I tried to picture her face from before the accident, the real Sarah's face, but the image was blurry, distorted, like trying to remember a dream. The woman downstairs had her face, her voice, her mannerisms, but they were a perfect copy of a copy, a reflection in a warped mirror. This photo proved it. This single file on a forgotten hard drive was my anchor to reality. I had to protect it. I quickly copied the file to a small thumb drive I kept on my keychain, my movements clumsy and panicked. I ejected the drive and shoved it deep into my pocket, the tiny piece of plastic feeling as heavy as a block of lead. Then I deleted the copy from the hard drive and shut down the computer, trying to erase any trace of my discovery. I stood there in the dark, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The whole house felt different now. It wasn't just a place of confusion anymore. It was a stage, a meticulously crafted set where I was the only one who didn't know the script. Every object, every photograph, every piece of furniture was a prop in a decade-long play. And the lead actress, she was a stranger. The box the hard drive came from was still open on the floor. It was one of several I'd brought down from the attic. The attic. The thought struck me with the force of a physical blow. In all the years we'd lived in this house, she had never once gone up there. Not once. She'd always made an excuse. It was too dusty, she was allergic. It was too hot in the summer, too cold in the winter. She claimed to be claustrophobic, but had no problem with elevators or closets. It was always the attic. It was the one place in this house that was exclusively mine. My domain of forgotten junk and old memories. Or was it something else? Was it a sanctuary? The only place her influence hadn't reached? A floorboard creaked downstairs. I froze, my blood turning to ice. I heard the faint murmur of the television, then the soft padding of footsteps moving towards the kitchen. She was awake. My stomach twisted into a knot. I had to get back to the guest room, pretend I was still asleep, still the grieving, confused husband. But the pull of the attic was stronger than my fear. If the photo was up there, what else could be? I slipped out of the study, my feet silent on the plush runner in the hallway. The stairs leading to the second floor were old, each one a potential betrayal. I tested my weight on every step, moving with a slowness that felt agonizing. I could hear her humming in the kitchen now, a cheerful, tuneless sound that made the hair on my arms stand up. It was the same little song she always hummed while making coffee, a detail so perfect, so practiced, it was monstrous. I reached the second-floor landing and crept towards the narrow hallway where the attic access was located. It was a simple, square panel in the ceiling with a string hanging down. My heart was a jackhammer in my chest. Reaching up, my fingers brushed against the rough twine. I hesitated, listening. The humming from the kitchen continued, steady and calm. She had no idea. I pulled the string. The panel groaned in protest, the sound echoing in the silent hall like a gunshot. I flinched, expecting to hear her call my name, to hear footsteps on the stairs. But there was only the continued, oblivious humming. The folded wooden ladder slid down, its hinges creaking loudly. I held my breath, waiting, counting the seconds. Nothing. With a final desperate glance towards the main staircase, I began to climb. The air grew warmer, thicker as I ascended. It smelled of old paper, cedar and dust, the scent of buried time. I pushed the panel open and hoisted myself into the darkness. I pulled the ladder up behind me, plunging the attic into near-total blackness, broken only by a sliver of moonlight from a single grimy porthole window at the far end. My phone was my only light. I switched on the flashlight, the beam cutting a nervous path through the shadows. The attic was exactly as I remembered it, a graveyard of our life together, or what I thought was our life together. Stacks of boxes labeled Christmas decorations, college textbooks, Ethan's old stuff. But now I was looking for something else. I was looking for Sarah's old stuff. I moved towards a corner I hadn't explored in years, a section filled with boxes that had come from her parents' house after they passed away. She'd been adamant that we keep them, but had shown no interest in ever opening them. Too many sad memories, she'd said with a wave of her hand. Another lie. I found a stack of boxes with her maiden name, Sarah Miller, written on the side in faded black marker. My hands shook as I sliced through the packing tape on the top one. It was full of yearbooks and photo albums from her high school years. I flipped through them frantically. There she was, a younger version with braces and a slightly different haircut, but it was her, the girl I fell in love with, the same eyes, the same smile. So, she was real. Some point she was real. I dug deeper, setting the first box aside and opening the next. This one was filled with clothes, smelling faintly of mothballs. Nothing. The third box was heavier. I pried it open and saw it was filled with books, old paperback novels mostly. But underneath them, tucked away in the corner, was a small leather-bound journal. It was dark green with no markings on the cover. It felt different from everything else, newer. It wasn't a teenage diary. I sat back on my heels, the flashlight beam trembling in my hand. My breath caught in my throat. This felt important. This felt like the reason I had come up here. With trembling fingers, I opened the cover. The first page was dated October 12th, 10 years ago. Just 3 months after our wedding. The handwriting was hers. I recognized the elegant, looping script instantly. But the words were not from the woman I knew. It started again, the entry began. I hear it at night. The scratching. Not from the walls this time. It's coming from the mirror. I saw a face in the reflection today, just for a second. It looked like me, but its eyes were wrong. Darker. Hungrier. Ethan thinks I'm not sleeping well, that I'm stressed from the wedding. He keeps telling me everything is fine. But he doesn't see it. He doesn't see the way it watches me. I read the words again. A cold dread seeping into my bones, far colder than the winter air outside. I flipped through the pages, a blur of entries detailing her growing paranoia and fear. She wrote about things moving in the house, about seeing her own reflection smiling when she wasn't. She was terrified, not of a ghost or an intruder. She was terrified of herself. My fingers stopped on an entry near the end of the journal. The handwriting was jagged, frantic. It was dated just 1 week before the car accident. The accident that supposedly changed everything. It's getting stronger, she wrote. Yesterday I lost an hour. I was in the kitchen, and then I was standing in the garden with dirt on my knees and no memory of how I got there. It wore my face. It used my hands. I think it wants to stay. I found a book in my grandmother's things, a very old book. Talks about them. It calls them echoes. Copies that anchor themselves to a person and slowly, piece by piece, replace them. The book says they are patient. It says the only way to fight them is to sever the connection, to create a shock to the system so great that the echo loses its grip. A great pain, a great loss. I have to do it. It's the only way to get my life back, to protect Ethan. He must never know the other one. He must never ever believe its lies. My blood ran cold. The car accident. It wasn't an accident. It was a desperate last-ditch attempt. A ritual. A shock to the system designed to expel the thing that was stealing her life. And it had failed. Or worse. It had succeeded, but not in the way she'd hoped. It had just made the copy stronger, erasing the last traces of the real Sarah and leaving this perfect, hollow thing in her place. I slammed the journal shut. The sound was a dull thud in the oppressive silence. The echo. The thing downstairs wasn't a doppelganger. It had a name. And my wife, the real Sarah, had known about it all along. She hadn't been losing her mind. She had been fighting a war, alone in the shadows of our home. A war she had ultimately lost. I had to get out of the attic. I had to get this journal, this proof, somewhere safe. As I scrambled to my feet, my flashlight beam swept across the far wall, past the porthole window. And that's when I saw it. Tucked away behind an old dresser, almost completely hidden in the shadows, was a section of the wall that wasn't right. The wooden planks were newer, cleaner. And set into the middle of them was a small steel door. A door I had never seen before. It was secured with a heavy modern padlock. My own home. And there was a room in it that I never knew existed. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the dusty silence of the attic. I knelt, my fingers tracing the cold, unforgiving steel of the padlock. It was real. This wasn't a trick of the light or a symptom of my fractured mind. This was an alteration to the very bones of my house. A secret carved into its structure without my knowledge. Who would do this? A contractor during a repair I'd forgotten? No, impossible. I would have known. I would have remembered someone installing a secret door in my own attic. The wood around it was pristine, a stark contrast to the aged, water-stained planks that made up the rest of the floor. It was a scar, a deliberate and carefully hidden wound. My first instinct was to run downstairs, to grab Sarah, to drag her up here and show her. To scream, "See? I'm not crazy. Something is wrong." But I stopped myself. I pictured her face, the strained patience, the carefully concealed pity. She would find a rational explanation. She'd say it must have been from the previous owners. A weird quirk of the house we'd simply never noticed. She wouldn't feel the violation that I felt. She wouldn't understand that this cold piece of metal felt like a lock on my own sanity. No, this was mine to figure out. I crept back down the attic stairs, my movements slow and deliberate, my ears straining for any sound from downstairs. Sarah was probably on the couch, watching one of her shows, oblivious. The thought sent a chill down my spine. How could she be so calm, so normal, while our world was tilting on its axis? In the garage, the smell of gasoline and cut grass did little to soothe my nerves. I rummaged through my toolbox, my hands shaking. A hammer? Too loud. A crowbar? Too much damage. My eyes landed on a pair of heavy-duty bolt cutters I'd bought years ago to remove an old fence. They were perfect. Heavy, silent, and decisive. Carrying them back up to the attic felt like a dream. Every step on the staircase creaked, a protest against my trespass. I was a burglar in my own home, about to break into a room I didn't know existed. The absurdity of it all was nearly enough to make me laugh. A hysterical, unhinged sound that I had to choke back down. Back in the attic, I positioned the jaws of the bolt cutters around the shackle of the padlock. I took a deep breath, the dust motes dancing in the single beam of light from the bare bulb. I squeezed. The metal groaned in protest. My muscles strained, the handles digging into my palms. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a sudden sharp crack that echoed like a gunshot in the confined space, the shackle snapped. The two halves of the padlock fell to the wooden floor with a dull thud. Silence. I stood frozen, listening. Had Sarah heard? I waited, counting the seconds, my own breathing loud in my ears. Nothing. No footsteps on the stairs, no call of my name. I was alone. With a trembling hand, I reached for the small, recessed handle on the steel door. It was cold to the touch. I pulled. It was heavier than I expected, and it opened with a low, hydraulic hiss, like the door to a bank vault. I expected to see the joists and insulation of the floor below, maybe the ceiling of our bedroom, but I saw darkness. And stairs. A narrow, steep set of wooden stairs, descending into a black, silent void. This wasn't a crawl space. This wasn't an access panel. This was a passageway. A secret annex built within the walls of my life. I pulled out my phone, my thumb fumbling with the screen to turn on the flashlight. The beam cut a sharp, white cone into the oppressive dark. The walls of the stairwell were unpainted drywall, smooth and gray. The air that rose up to meet me was cool and sterile, without the familiar musty scent of our old house. It smelled like nothing. My feet felt like lead, but I forced them to move. One step, then another. The door hissed shut above me, plunging me into near total darkness, save for the light of my phone. The click of the latch locking behind me sent a jolt of pure panic through my body. For a terrifying second, I thought I was trapped. I scrambled back up and pushed on the door. It swung open easily from the inside. It wasn't a lock, just a heavy, self-closing mechanism. A small relief, but my heart was still racing. I continued my descent, counting 12 steps in total. They ended on a solid concrete floor. I swept my phone's light across the space. It was a room. A small windowless cube, maybe 10 feet by 10 feet. It was completely hidden, sandwiched somewhere between the first and second floors of our house. And it was furnished. Against the far wall stood a simple wooden desk and a single hardback chair. To the left was a tall, narrow bookshelf. That was it. No bed, no decorations, no clutter. It had the sterile, impersonal feel of an interrogation room. I walked toward the bookshelf first, the beam of my light dancing over the spines of the books. My blood ran cold. They weren't novels or hobby books. They were textbooks. The psychology of persuasion, cognitive dissonance and identity, memory, malleability and fabrication. One entire shelf was dedicated to clinical studies on dissociative disorders. And on the bottom shelf, a collection of worn paperbacks, titles I'd never read but whose themes were suddenly terrifyingly familiar. The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The Scapegoat. The Double. This wasn't just a room. This was a research station. A laboratory for the study of me. My gaze was pulled from the books to the desk. It was empty save for 3 items sitting perfectly aligned in the center. A simple desk lamp, a black fountain pen, and a black leather-bound journal. My feet carried me forward as if on their own. I stood before the desk, my own reflection a ghostly image on its polished surface. The journal seemed to hum with a dark energy. It was the centerpiece, the purpose of this entire hidden space. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to turn around, to run up the stairs, to get out of this place and never look back. But I couldn't. I had to know. I reached out, my fingers hesitating just above the cool leather cover. This was it. The heart of the mystery. The answer to the whispers, the flickering reflections, the wrongness that had infected my life. With a final shuddering breath, I picked it up. It felt heavy, substantial. I opened it to the first page. The paper was thick and creamy, and on it there was writing. A single line written in neat, precise cursive with black ink. I stared, my mind refusing to process what my eyes were seeing. I knew that handwriting. I knew the aggressive slant of the letters, the unique way the M was formed, the sharp cross of the T. It was my own. Perfectly, flawlessly my own. I looked at the date written in the top right corner. It was from 5 weeks ago. The day before I first saw the other me in the bathroom mirror. My eyes dropped back to the sentence written on the page, and the words seemed to burn themselves into my brain. A final horrifying confirmation of a truth I was not ready to accept. It read, Phase 1 is complete. The subject is no longer aware of the original. Phase 1 is complete. The subject is no longer aware of the original. My blood turned to ice. The subject, Sarah, the original me. The words were a clinical, detached summary of the psychological horror I'd been living. It wasn't just that she was being fooled. Her mind was being actively rewritten. The creature downstairs wasn't just wearing my face. It was systematically erasing my existence from the one person whose belief was my entire world. My hands trembled, the brittle pages of the journal crinkling under the pressure. I had to know more. I had to know what came next. With a desperate, fumbling motion, I turned the page. The same neat, precise handwriting continued, a stark contrast to the chaos exploding in my mind. The next entry was dated just 2 days ago. Phase 2. Isolation and elimination. The successful conditioning of the subject provides the foundation for the next stage. The original, now designated the variable, remains a potential contaminant to the environment. Its continued presence, even in a concealed state, poses an unacceptable risk. The objective of Phase 2 is to sever the variable's remaining connections to its former life and neutralize it as a threat. Neutralize it. The word was cold, sterile. It wasn't about defeating me or winning. It was about solving a problem. I was a loose end to be tied up, a variable to be eliminated from an equation. I read on, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Strategy for isolation involves preemptive narrative control. I have informed the subject that a distant, mentally unstable cousin, David, has recently fixated on our family. I described his history of delusions, his obsessive tendencies, and, crucially, a recent cosmetic surgery to mimic my appearance. I have planted this seed. Any attempt by the variable to make contact will now be interpreted not as a plea for help, but as a symptom of this cousin's dangerous obsession. I have already spoken to our friends, Michael and Jessica, expressing my concern for this fictional cousin. The social perimeter is secure. I felt the air leave my lungs. It was brilliant. It was diabolical. Every possible avenue of escape, every person I might turn to, had already been poisoned against me. If I called Michael, I wouldn't be Alex crying for help. I'd be the crazy cousin David, proving the doppelganger story true. He had built a fortress of lies around my life, and I was on the outside looking in. But the next part was what truly broke me. The final element of isolation will be to leverage the subject's deepest emotional vulnerabilities. The variable and the subject share a memory of a firefly jar they made as children, a secret they believe is unique to them. The variable will likely see this as his ultimate proof of identity, a silver bullet to shatter the illusion. I will use this. I have told the subject a modified version of this story, attributing it to the disturbed cousin's obsessive research into our lives. When the variable inevitably uses this memory, it will be the final damning piece of evidence of his psychosis. It will be the trigger for the subject to seek external help, to call the authorities. It will be the variable's own undoing, using his most cherished memory as the weapon. The firefly jar. A memory so pure, so private, I hadn't even thought of it until now. A warm summer night at Sarah's childhood home. We were just kids, maybe 10 or 11, spending hours catching fireflies in a mayonnaise jar with holes poked in the lid. We made a promise that night, a silly, childish promise that we'd always be able to find each other in the dark. It was our secret, our foundation, and he had taken it, twisted it, and fashioned it into a cage for me. That was it. I couldn't hide anymore. I couldn't wait and watch as this thing dismantled my life piece by piece. Reading about its plan was one thing. Seeing it lay claim to my most sacred memories was another. A hot white rage burned through the fear. I wasn't a variable. I wasn't a problem to be solved. I was Alex, and that was my wife downstairs. I had to get to her. I had to break through the conditioning before it was too late. I snatched the journal, my one piece of tangible proof, and scrambled toward the attic door. My plan was a desperate, half-formed mess of adrenaline and hope. I would show her the journal. I would tell her about the firefly jar before he could. I would make her see me. I had to. I eased the attic door open, listening. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I crept down the stairs, each step a thunderclap in the silence. My bare feet were cold against the hardwood floor. I moved through the hallway, my eyes scanning every shadow. The living room was empty. The kitchen, too. Then I heard it. A soft humming from the back porch. I moved to the sliding glass door and looked out. There she was. Sarah. She was sitting on the porch swing, a mug of tea cradled in her hands, gently swaying back and forth. She was looking out at the yard, a faint melancholic smile on her face. She was alone. This was my chance. It was now or never. I slid the door open. The creak of the runners made her jump. She turned and her eyes widened, first in surprise and then in fear. The smile vanished. She saw a disheveled, wild-eyed man who looked like her husband but clearly wasn't. "Sarah," I said, my voice hoarse, desperate. I took a step toward her, holding the journal out like a shield. "Sarah, you have to listen to me. Please." She scrambled to her feet, knocking over her mug. Hot tea splashed across the wooden deck. Who are you? How did you get in here?" Her words were a physical blow. "It's me, Sarah. It's Alex. The man in this house. He's an imposter. He's a fake. I'm the real Alex." I saw the flicker of confusion in her eyes, quickly replaced by the cold, hard certainty of fear. The doppelganger's poison had worked perfectly. She was looking at me and seeing a monster. "My husband is at work," she said, her voice trembling as she backed away toward the door. "I don't know who you are, but you need to leave. Right now." No, please just look," I pleaded, taking another step forward. "This is his journal. It's all in here. His plan. He calls me the variable. He calls you the subject." I tried to open the book to show her the page, but my frantic movements only scared her more. "Get away from me," she shrieked, her hand fumbling for the handle of the sliding door. "The firefly jar, Sarah," I yelled, the words tumbling out in a torrent of desperation. "Remember the firefly jar? At your parents' house? We were 10 years old, and we promised we'd always find each other in the dark. He couldn't know that. Only I would know that. I saw it then. The final nail in my coffin." The look on her face wasn't recognition. It wasn't the dawning of the truth. It was pity. A horrified, terrified pity. The doppelganger had been right. My most precious memory, my silver bullet, had just confirmed her worst fears. "Oh God," she whispered, her eyes welling with tears. He told me you would say that. David." The name hit me like a physical punch. David, the crazy cousin. It was real. I was him. She finally got the door open and slipped back inside, slamming it shut and locking it. I stood there on the porch watching through the glass as my wife, the love of my life, backed away from me, her face a mask of absolute terror. She held her phone in her shaking hand, her thumb hovering over the screen. "Sarah, no, please don't," I begged, my voice cracking, pressing my hands against the cold glass. "Please, it's me." She didn't look at me. She looked at her phone, her finger tapping the screen. I could see her mouth the words, her voice too muffled to hear. But I knew who she was calling. She wasn't calling the police. It was worse. A moment later, her phone rang in her hand. She answered it, still not taking her terrified eyes off me. And then I heard his voice, tinny and distant through her phone's earpiece, but still perfectly mine. And I heard her response, a choked, terrified sob that shattered what was left of my heart. "Alex," she cried into the phone. "He's here. The cousin. He's here, just like you said he would be." My blood ran cold. The trap had been sprung. For a week I had been a ghost, a frantic voice on burner phones, sending cryptic texts, trying to pierce the veil of domestic bliss my replacement had so carefully woven. The lie I'd fed her, the one last, desperate gambit, was about my cousin. A fictional cousin named David from Oregon who was supposedly passing through town. A man who did not exist. I had no cousins. It was a simple binary test. A question only the real me could answer correctly. If she mentioned David and he played along, she would know. And now she knew. The voice that answered her was a perfect mimicry of my own, but through the tinny speaker of my phone, I could hear the subtle hesitation, the microsecond of cognitive dissonance as the creature processed her words. "The cousin," it repeated, a hollow echo. Then a forced airy laugh that sounded chillingly familiar. "David. Right. Wow, with everything going on it completely slipped my mind. Is he here already?" He had failed. He had walked right into it, and in that moment the entire illusion shattered. I heard Sarah take a sharp, ragged breath. It wasn't a breath of relief. It was the sound of a person staring at a monster who had, until that second, been wearing the face of the man she loved. "No," Sarah said, her voice trembling but gaining a sliver of cold steel I hadn't heard in weeks. "He's not here," he called. "He's running late." A brilliant lie. She was buying time. My heart swelled with a painful, desperate pride. She was fighting. A beat of silence stretched over the phone line, thick and suffocating. I could picture the scene perfectly. The two of them in our foyer, the afternoon light slanting through the window by the stairs, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air between them. I could imagine the creature's smile faltering, the mask of Alex beginning to crack at the edges as he realized his mistake. "Running late," the imposter repeated, his tone losing its casual warmth. It was flatter now, colder. "Funny. He didn't mention anything to me." "You've spoken to my cousin, Sarah? When?" "He called a little while ago," she said, her voice strained. "Looking for you." "And he called your phone?" "Not mine." The question was an accusation. The predator was realizing the trap wasn't just sprung, but that he was the one caught in it. I gripped my own phone so hard my knuckles turned white. My ear pressed against it, willing myself through the connection, trying to be there with her. My battery was dead, he said. The lie was clumsy, pathetic. He knew it. I knew it. And Sarah definitely knew it. Your phone is on the kitchen counter. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. It's plugged in. It's fully charged. The silence that followed was the most terrifying sound I had ever heard. It was a vacuum, a void where the pleasantries and deceptions had been stripped away, leaving only a raw, horrifying truth. I heard a faint rustle of fabric, the sound of a subtle shift in weight. He was moving. Where is Leo? Sarah asked, her voice suddenly sharp with maternal panic. He's upstairs, the creature said. The voice was still mine, but it was altered, the edges roughened with something ancient and cruel. The performance was over. He's napping. We shouldn't wake him. I want to see him. I don't think so. I heard the sound of her shoes scuffing against the hardwood floor. A quick, panicked retreat. What are you? She breathed, the words laced with a terror that felt like a physical blow. I'm the man who tucks your son into bed, it snarled. I'm the man who holds you at night. I'm the man who fixed the leaky faucet you complained about for months while the other one, was too busy, too distracted to even notice. I'm a better husband than he ever was. I'm a better father. Stay away from me, she pleaded, her voice breaking. Just stay away. Where is he, Sarah? The voice demanded, closer to her now, closer to the phone. The one who told you about the cousin. Have you been talking to him this whole time? Hiding it from me? Alex, listen to me. I whispered into my phone, a useless, desperate prayer. The garage. The side door. As if she could hear my thoughts, I heard her say, I need some air. A frantic excuse. A low, guttural laugh vibrated through the line. It was not my laugh. It was a horrible, possessive sound that made the hair on my arms stand up. You're not going anywhere. I've worked too hard for this. I studied him for a year, Sarah. I watched from a distance. I learned every gesture, every story, every flaw. I memorized the names of his useless college friends and the way he likes his coffee. This life, this family, it's mine now. I earned it. He was weak. He didn't deserve you. He didn't deserve any of this. Crash. The sound of something ceramic shattering. The hall table lamp, I realized. My stomach lurched. Get away from me, Sarah screamed. Her voice was pure, undiluted fear. Mommy. A small, sleepy voice drifted from further away. Leo. Oh God, no. He was awake. Leo, honey, stay in your room. Sarah shrieked. Lock the door. The door's already locked, Sarah, the imposter said, his voice calm, chillingly reasonable. I locked it when he went down for his nap. Just in case. My blood turned to ice. He had planned this. He had anticipated a confrontation. He had isolated our son. This wasn't just an imposter. This was a strategist, a meticulous monster. I heard Sarah let out a strangled sob, a sound of utter despair. Then the sounds of a frantic struggle. Pounding footsteps, a body hitting a wall. The safe room. I yelled into my phone, my voice raw. The button under the bookshelf. A secret we'd installed years ago. A reinforced closet hidden behind a false wall in my office, meant for a home invasion. Felt like a lifetime ago. I could hear her frantic breathing, the rasp of air being sucked into her lungs as she ran. The heavy, rhythmic thud of the creature's footsteps was right behind her. You think you can hide from me in this house? It roared, the voice distorting with rage. I know every inch of this place. I know its secrets better than you do. I heard the office door slam open, the wood cracking as it hit the doorstop. I heard her scrambling, the sound of books being knocked to the floor. She was at the bookshelf. She was trying to get to the button. Come on, Sarah, come on, come on. I chanted under my breath, my own body coiled tight, helpless miles away in a grimy motel room. Her breathing was a panicked gale in my ear. The creature's footsteps stopped. He was in the doorway watching her. Clever, the voice said, laced with a kind of mocking admiration. The little hideaway. Did he tell you about that too? Did he whisper all his little secrets to you over the phone while I was the one here, living his life, loving his family? There was a sudden sharp click. Not the sound of the safe room door. It was a different sound. A metallic final sound. The phone in Sarah's hand must have been knocked away. I heard it clatter against the floorboards, the sounds of the room suddenly distant and muffled. But I could still hear. God, I could still hear. I heard Sarah's gasp. I heard the creature take one slow, deliberate step towards her. And then it spoke again. But this time it wasn't speaking to Sarah. The voice was closer to the fallen phone, directed at me. It knew. It had always known I was listening. "You should have let go, Alex," it said, the voice a calm, venomous whisper that cut through the static and into my soul. "You could have just disappeared. Started over. But you had to interfere." A pause. I could hear my own heart hammering against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of impending doom. "Now," the creature whispered, its voice dripping with a terrible, triumphant finality. "Now you get to listen to how it all ends." It spoke of my life as if it were a failed experiment. A rough draft full of crossed-out sentences and grammatical errors. Claimed it was the final published version, the author's intended edition. It told me about the promotion I'd been too timid to ask for 6 years ago, the one that went to David Miller instead. The creature described in perfect detail the corner office I would have had, the accounts I would have managed, the respect I would have earned. It had lived that reality, absorbing the potential I had squandered. It spoke of the cross-country trip Sarah and I had planned, the one we canceled because I was worried about taking the time off work. It described the sunsets over the Grand Canyon and the quiet joy of driving through the painted desert, not as a dream, but as a memory it had claimed for itself. Every hesitation, it hissed, its voice a dry rustle of turning pages. Every cautious step back when you should have leaped forward, you fed me. You gave me form. I am not a monster, Ethan. I am your potential. I am the man you were always meant to be. My mind reeled. This wasn't a doppelganger in the classic sense. It wasn't a demon trying to steal my soul. It was an echo, a psychic scar left by a life of indecision, an entity that had grown strong in the shadows of my own fear. Then its head tilted, and its gaze, my gaze, fell upon Sarah. She was frozen, her hand still clutching the iron poker, her face a pale mask of disbelief. "And you," the creature said, its tone shifting from condescending pity to something cold and sharp. "You were told. Your grandmother warned your mother, who warned you. Your family has always been sensitive. They know the rules. You don't look into the shadows. You don't acknowledge the echo in the attic. You let it be. It is a harmless thing so long as it is ignored. A quiet roommate living in the spaces you abandoned." It took a step towards her, and I instinctively moved to stand in front of her, but my feet felt nailed to the floor. "But you interfered," it continued, its voice dropping to a terrifying whisper. "You helped him see me. You broke the one simple rule. And now the correction cannot be limited to him. A perfect life requires a perfect partner." A cold dread, far worse than anything I had felt before, washed over me. I finally understood the true horror of the situation. "To complete the story," the creature said, a faint, triumphant smile playing on its lips, "the editor must fix all the characters. The Sarah who stood by her husband's timid choices, the Sarah who second-guessed him, the Sarah who was afraid, she must be revised. A new Sarah will be written, one who matches my potential. And you, my dear, you will simply be the draft that gets deleted." It wasn't going to kill her. It was going to erase her. She would fade away, replaced by her own echo, a version of herself that this thing deemed worthy. I looked at my wife, at the woman I loved, the woman whose only crime was loving me and trying to save me, and I saw the dawning, soul-shattering terror in her eyes as she understood. She wasn't just going to lose me. She was going to lose herself. That was it. That was the spark. In that moment, all my fear, all my indecision, burned away into white-hot rage. This creature, this parasite of potential, had made one critical mistake. It had threatened Sarah, and it had done so in my house. The thought struck me like a lightning bolt. The house. It had called the house an archive, a library of my life. It wasn't just anchored to me, it was anchored to this place. All the memories, all the regrets, all the potential it fed on, were soaked into the very walls. An image flashed in my mind, the report from the home inspector when we bought the place. A note about the old, corroded gas line running from the main valve in the basement up through the walls, right behind the old chimney stack in the attic. A recommendation to have it replaced. A recommendation I had ignored. Another hesitation. Another corner cut. My own flaw was going to be my weapon. I needed a distraction. I needed to do something illogical, something the creature, with its cold, calculated perfection, wouldn't anticipate. The locket. I suddenly screamed, my voice raw. "Sarah, your grandmother's locket. I found it. It's in the jewelry box." Sarah stared at me, her expression bewildered. The creature tilted its head, a flicker of confusion in its perfect copy of my eyes. The locket had been lost for years. We'd searched everywhere. Go, I yelled, trying to pour a lifetime of conviction into that one word. Go get it. The creature hesitated. For just a fraction of a second, its perfect memory was being cross-referenced with this new impossible piece of data. It was an error in the code, a bug in the system. That was all the time I needed. Sarah, God bless her, didn't question it. She saw the desperate plea in my eyes, turned and bolted for the attic stairs. There is no locket, the creature snarled, the illusion broken. It lunged to go after her. I moved. I wasn't stronger. I wasn't faster. But I was desperate. I threw my entire body at it, a messy, clumsy human tackle. It was like hitting a wall made of cold smoke. But it was enough. I shoved it backward, sending it stumbling over a dusty crate of my old college textbooks. I didn't follow Sarah. I scrambled in the opposite direction, deeper into the attic, towards the dark, bricked-in chimney. The creature was already recovering, its form flickering, the edges of its body seeming to fray like burning film. "You are destroying the archive!" it shrieked, its voice losing my tone and becoming something alien and layered. "You are erasing the final draft." I saw what I was looking for. A box of my old sports trophies. Pathetic, plastic awards from a life it deemed unworthy. I grabbed the heaviest one, a Little League MVP award from when I was 12, a symbol of a past it could never truly understand. "A life without her is a typo," I grunted, and swung the trophy with all my might against the rusted iron pipe running alongside the bricks. The clang echoed in the small space. The creature was coming for me, its face contorting in rage. I swung again. A deep groan vibrated through the metal. "It's not logical," the creature screamed. "Self-preservation is the prime directive. Then you've got a lot to learn about being human," I roared and brought the trophy down one last time. The pipe ruptured with a sickening crunch. The hiss was instantaneous, a venomous serpent uncoiling in the air. The smell of rotten eggs, the scent of oblivion, filled the attic in seconds. The creature stopped dead. It stood 10 feet away, its form flickering violently. I could see its thought process warring on its face. Its existence was tied to the house, the archive. But the house was now a bomb. Preservation versus destruction. The paradox was a cage and it was trapped inside. It couldn't process an act of total willing self-sabotage. It was a variable it had never calculated. I didn't wait to see what it would choose. I scrambled back, choking on the fumes, my eyes watering. I tumbled down the attic stairs, my lungs burning. Sarah was at the front door, her face a question I didn't have time to answer. "Run!" I bellowed, the sound tearing from my throat. I grabbed her arm, half pulling, half throwing her through the front door. We fell in a heap onto the cool, damp grass of the front lawn. I pushed myself up, looking back at our home. For one final terrifying second, I saw a face in the attic window. It was my face. My exact face. Not twisted in rage, not glitching like a broken hologram. It was just my face. And the expression on it was one I knew intimately. It was the expression of pure, unadulterated fear. Then the pilot light in the basement found the gas. The world vanished in a silent, brilliant flash. A deep, guttural whoosh followed, as every window in the house blew outward in a shower of glass and fire. The roar was deafening, a physical force that pressed us into the ground. The house, my home, my archive, became a raging inferno. I held Sarah tight, shielding her head as debris rained down around us. In the distance, the first sirens began to scream their mournful song. I lay there on the grass, the heat of my burning past warming my face. I looked down at my hands, half expecting them to be made of smoke. I looked at Sarah, her eyes wide, reflecting the flames. I felt her heart hammering against my chest, a frantic, real, and beautifully imperfect rhythm. The thing in the attic was gone. The house was gone. My past was a column of black smoke against the night sky. I didn't know if I was the original draft or just the last page left after the fire. But as I held my wife on the lawn of our smoldering life, I realized it didn't matter. It didn't matter what I was or what I had been. All that mattered was the choice I had made, and the woman breathing in my arms. The story wasn't over. It was just the beginning of a new one we would write together.